Linda Lopez, running for governor, the only woman in the field. Is that going to help you, hurt you, or does it make any difference?
I believe it helps in many, many different ways.
Give me some more detail on that.
Well, as the only woman running, I've had an opportunity to travel, of course, across the state of New Mexico, talking to many women, single moms, older women, just listening to their concerns, and I believe I have a much better understanding of what they're going through in their lives.
And what sorts of concerns are they giving you?
The issues that I've been hearing deal with elder care, issues about child care, issues about jobs for children, for their children that I speak to who are moms, issues about access just to different areas of the state government of which we, as New Mexico government, are in charge of.
Well, we have some new news, more or less, about working mothers in this state. And it seems that 25 to 30% of the working moms with kids under 3 years old in New Mexico are working at low-wage jobs.
Yes.
Do you have a plan for raising wages in New Mexico, and what is it?
Well, in my legislative history of 18 years in Santa Fe, I have always supported raising the minimum wage. We just had a piece of legislation this past year that didn't quite get through. I voted for the bill a few years ago. I will continue to support that and sign a bill if it reaches my desk as governor. But as governor, I will make sure that state government jobs, that we are paying our state employees a living wage.
So living wage is a little different from minimum wage, and we know that President Obama has signed an executive order raising the minimum wage for federal contract workers.
Correct.
Is that the sort of thing you have in mind?
Something very similar to that, but again, the difference between minimum wage of the bills that have been in front of the legislature, 7-something, 8-something, depending the time it's been introduced. A living wage is much more to be able to allow our families to survive and to have an opportunity to be profitable.
How would you answer the business interest who will say it's going to kill jobs?
Well, as state government, if we start within state government and show the leadership that I can bring as governor, we began to set the precedent as to what should be happening. And if government can do that, then we take many of our employees, many of them women, off any type of assistance that many of them are getting, where they can qualify for SNAP and many of the other programs. Also the opportunity to reduce and work on the disparity in pay amongst many of our state employees.
Now, how would you address the gender pay gap? Because we know that it's still a big problem in the state. New Mexico is about in the middle of the pack in terms of the 50 states, but women are still making, depending on which number you use, either 77 cents or 80 cents on the dollar to men. How would you address that problem?
Well, again, as the governor of the state of New Mexico, I began to look at the disparity that exists. Those are the corrections that I will make as governor to make sure that there is parity within our departments. I know there are several reports that we've heard of over the last several years about the disparity in pay. I will correct those. That is state government. Now again, as the leader of the state, I take that information and began a campaign as to how we can do the outreach, where we go working with our chambers of commerce, or even going to work with local government to make sure that even local government and our schools are paying women for the work that they're doing, a parity in the pay.
Well, actually, I was involved in a study a while back of the state workforce, and the pay gap at the state level is smaller than it is in the larger economy here. And that moves us to, what are we going to do for economic development in this state? What is your plan to bolster our economy? We are first in poverty, and we are last in job creation since the recession. So what's your plan to attack that dual problem?
Well, New Mexico has been stagnant since the recession, and while everyone else, of course, in the country is moving forward. New Mexico has had, I think, some hard times over many years of trying to keep up with the national economy. What my plan is to begin with what I have control over as governor, to provide leadership. And those are job opportunities for many communities across our state. One is dealing with an internship program to allow our young people between the ages of 17 and 24 to have a foot in the door, to be able to get those soft skills, And the reason why is, as you know, the word out on the street is that New Mexico is not workforce ready. In order to provide that, our people need an opportunity to have the professionalism, to be able to learn the soft skills of showing up on time, learning how to dress for success, learning how to interact with people. Those are all the skills that an employer needs. The other part of my plan deals with working on adult basic education, because that too is an important component of how we have a workforce that's ready.
All of those things are very important. I certainly agree with you on that, but the jobs have to be there.
Yes.
And we have not recovered in jobs. What do you think the problem is? Do you think there's a tax problem, the tax structure? What would you do about that, if anything?
Well, currently our tax structure, I think we've given quite a bit away in our tax dollars. We need to go back and review. We've had an opportunity to get some reports back from the legislature, but I firmly will commit to make sure that we look at a tax expenditure budget, because we need to see where our tax dollars have been going, any tax credit. If it's not working, then maybe we should reevaluate that tax credit, take it back and figure where else we need to put our dollars. Just giving tax credits does not produce jobs, because we've had many a year over industrial revenue bonds and many other opportunities of money that have been forgiven for job creation. They may come in, they leave. Where are we left? Still with no tax base. To me, that is also important. The other part of my job creation is looking as to how we increase job opportunities in every state government office, increasing workers that are qualified to work in Children, Youth, and Families Department, where we've had many issues. Department of Transportation needs, we have many of state offices, state departments that need qualified employees to come in. Not a super hire, but qualified and targeted as to how we can begin to increase. That also increases job opportunities.
Let's talk a bit just quickly about the education department.
Yes, ma'am.
Because I know you've already said there's certain kinds of skills that you want to see, but we have a miserable graduation rate in the state.
Yes.
Do you have a plan for increasing the number of our graduates and the rate of graduation?
The graduation rate has been increasing by increments, but it is slowly moving in the right direction. Now, education doesn't change overnight. That's an investment that we have to place in our children, working with our teachers and our families. And it's what I call the whole child. Even if you're in high school trying to graduate, all the extra testing that comes in, that does not help to make our students brighter or smarter. We have to invest our monies to make sure that what is surrounding for support services for that student and the child to be able to be the best that they can, which means more programs to help our students to be able to graduate.
Well, let's move back to the issue of women, and this brings to me the mind also of teen pregnancy. You don't really address women on your website at all, except to say you want to be sure that women have access to neonatal care. Mm-hmm. What about the abortion issue? Where do you stand on that?
Well, with regards to the issue on abortion, I firmly believe that every woman has the right to make a choice about her health care. She's the only person that knows and understands as to what the effects are within her family. And so that could be with regards to any type of health care that she needs. I do support that, and that should be open for every woman.
Now, give me very quickly, you do address unions.
Yes.
Also, you're very strong on unions, and you want to make sure that the prevailing wage is paid on state contracts. Is that right? How would you go about enforcing that?
Well, as governor, that's what your role is. You go through and have a review done on all of the contracts, which I will be doing, just to make sure that we are, those that we contract with as the state are paying that prevailing wage. Okay. If not, then you have to go back and take care of it.
Now, we have only 1 minute left. Let's talk about winning the race. You're obviously an underdog because you're low in fundraising, and some people say you can't overcome the $4 million that Susana Martinez already has. How are you going to win this race?
Well, what we are currently doing is out walking and knocking. We're making contact with many community members. It's grassroots outreach, and I firmly believe that will bring the victory that's needed because our people have to be engaged.
Thank you so much, Linda Lopez.
Thank you.